Howdy, and welcome to the Lost Rider podcast. It's an honor and privilege to address you in the capacity of an interviewer, reporter, and media member. Too many modern media outlets have forgone the integrity and responsibility required of credible information sources. What you will receive here are straightforward discussions with legislators, agency leaders, biologists, engineers, doctors, and countless other experts that have the answers to questions often circulated as kitchen table issues. The title Lost Rider may be thought of literally as well as in the metaphorical sense. While there has been the instance that I was momentarily a little turned around at night in a wilderness area, the idea of being a lost rider in life, well, that fits most folks at some time. These renderings are coming to you in the form of the 25-year-old radio program, The News from the Camp House. It still airs every Saturday morning at 6:30 a.m. Central Time on KULM 98.3 FM out of Columbus, Texas. The original intent was to relate outdoor topics to the general public. Immediately, it was found that all issues are relatable to the outdoors and that people are people. They all play a role and they all have a vested interest. It's this program's desire to answer common questions about how the world works, how it will operate in the future, and what's the holdup? So please listen, enjoy, and never hesitate to contact us with more questions and feedback. Good morning and welcome to this weekend's edition of News from the Camp House, the listening post of the Texas Sportsman Association. This is Herman Brune. This weekend's edition is also brought to us by the Shaw's Bend Social Club. Shaw's Bend Social Club, country club for folks who don't have a country club. And may I also mention that, the Broadway Food Mart. Yeah, those folks want to be part of this. Broadway Food Mart. Seems like everybody wants to be part of the News from the Camp House lately. That's Amy and Sonny over there at the Citgo station, right where you turn off into Shaw's Bend. They want to remind everybody when you're going to and from the country out here, stop at the Citgo station right there at Farmer Market Road, 1890, Shaw's Bend Road. And they've got everything you need for your cookout, for anything you want to do, gas up, do whatever you need, get some groceries. And they've always been good friends to us, and, we just want to help them out, too. All right, tell you what, here this morning, we have a special guest, a kind lady who has been with us in the past. And a special thank you and welcome Miss Lee Spencer White. Miss Lee, how you doing this morning?
Good morning. I'm doing wonderfully. Thank you for inviting me onto your show.
All right. Now, let me explain to my listeners. When I talk, in the past, we have had several programs where we talked about Texas history and primarily what was going on at the Alamo, not just what was going on historically at the Alamo, but what is going on at the Alamo right now, today, in its restoration. And there's a bunch of stuff going on. And it was pretty political here and heated a couple of years back. And Miss Lee is Lee Spencer. Why I call her Miss Lee, because that's the way country folks do. But Miss Lee is kind of like my go-to person here. I watch her posts on Facebook and try to read her temperature a little bit and see if everybody's happy. And Miss Lee, please tell me the organization. Tell me a little bit about the organization Descendents of the Alamo.
I'd love to. We were founded in 1994 and had our first ceremony inside the Alamo Church in 1995. We're an organization of proven direct bloodline of the Alamo defenders. And in 1995, we were the first people to ever actually read the names or the muster roll call inside the church. Since Travis read it and called names, we were the very first ones, and it was so moving to be inside of that darkened chapel with the actual bloodline of the defenders answering roll for their ancestor. It was very moving. And our mission statement is to promote and preserve the memory of the Alamo garrison. Now, that Alamo garrison is not only the men who died in the Alamo, but it's also the scouts, couriers, and the women and children who survived.
All right. Let's bring into account a little bit where we're at as far as the timeline is concerned in historical perspective here. We're coming up on March here pretty quick, and of course, March the 2nd is Texas Independence Day. Please, I'm gonna let you. I don't want to do all the talking. You go ahead.
Well, March 2nd, of course, is such a significant date in Texas history, and I want to sort of bring that back around to the Alamo, because the Alamo sent 2 delegates to attend the conference in Washington on the Brazos, and they said, don't come back unless you vote for independence. So without the document that I thought was brilliant, being formed at Washington on the Brazos, without that, we would have just been an insurrection. We would not actually have the government we have today. And what's painful is that a couple of delegates actually had family inside the Alamo at the time. And so they were most anxious to finish the Constitution and the Declaration in order to try to go save their family in the Alamo. I don't think that would have happened. I don't think there was enough time to save the Alamo garrison, but I can only imagine how painful that would have been to be disciplined enough not to jump on your horse and head towards the Alamo instead of finishing the document that would birth Texas.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. All right, so March the 2nd is Texas Independence Day. And just to finish the statement so everybody's on the same page, March the 6th, 4 days later, is when the Alamo fell. And that's what you're referring to is they would not have had time to ride from Washington on the Brazos to San Antonio.
That's correct. To be able to make a difference for that dawn attack on March 6th.
Right, which just a few people probably would not have made that much of a difference. Yeah, and there's a lot of things that come into play here. Santa Anna, one of the things that comes up in history is he showed up a little bit early and unexpected, did he not?
Yes, he did. Of course, costs went against his agreement, and I don't know how many of your listeners know about the Siege of Bear, which was a battle that the Texans had that actually took the Alamo Fort first. Right. And they had cost to return to Mexico with arms to defend himself against Indians, and he promised that he would not return. Well, obviously, as soon as he got back, Santa Anna was livid and immediately set his troops marching towards Texas, and it did not matter on how many people he lost on that trip, and he made it very quickly. And so, yes, it was unexpected that he would arrive. They thought they had a couple more weeks.
Right. Santa Anna showed up. Everybody thought they had a little bit more time to get their business together and to try to make a defense of the Alamo. And I say supposedly, maybe I ain't supposed to say that. One of the reasons that Travis decided to hold the Alamo was because it had the largest cannonade west of the Mississippi, and he didn't want that to fall into Santa Anna's hands.
Well, some some say that now, and that is true. But there was a discussion on whether to hold the line in San Antonio or to fall back. And the thought process was, let's defend our families and make this the front. And of course, there was no other fort like that further back. But the argument was also at the time, don't hold yourself up in forts. So, but yes, they were on the frontier. They thought that they would have time to have more troops come, and would have been much more successful and maybe won it had they had the troops that they had at San Jacinto.
Right. Okay. There were so many factors at play back then, and I guess you got to say, good Lord made it all work out. At San Jacinto, later on, Santa Anna had divided his troops, correct?
Correct.
And so when Sam Houston caught him over there, or whenever Sam Houston decided this is a spot, he was taking on about 1,500 instead of the thousands that were in San Antonio?
Well, yes. Now, they were all on the march towards San Jacinto, but luckily for us, only one portion arrived, and Gaona, one of his other generals, was sort of lost somewhere around Bastrop and was late. So there was a lot of issues, including flooding and rivers flooding, which was horrendous on the women and children fleeing as well. It was the most painful thing in the Texas Revolution was what they called the runaway scrape, or the runaway fight.
Right.
All the women and children evacuating. There's many horrible stories about that, especially with illness. To kind of bring this into a personal story, I am a direct descendant of the oldest man in the Alamo, Gordon C. Jennings. And I'm also descended from Hodges, who was also an older man during the runaway scrape, and he was in charge of his family and his grandchildren. And the reason that line actually lived was he had been in the Revolution under the swamp fox and learned to put vinegar in their water. So my family did not get sick. We put vinegar in the water.
I'll be darned. Okay. That's all. That's too cool. Yeah, history.
Find themselves in that position. Yes, put vinegar in your water.
I'll be darned. And Swamp Fox, tell people who that is.
Well, I am not an expert in the American Revolution, but he was a very, very famous military man this would have been in South Carolina. I'd learned more about him when I visited Charleston a couple years ago, and I went, I never really understood that story that he comes on the Texas side about this vinegar until I got to South Carolina and started reading about this man and how, he fought, and the way he fought was very unconventional, and I guess they were in the swamps and in the boggy lands. But again, I'm not an expert in that.
Okay. All right. I'll tell you what. Let's take a quick break and thank the folks who let us come on here every Saturday morning, and we'll be right back. Thank goodness for all the great sponsors we have here at News from the Camp House. H-E-B Food Stores. That's Stephen Tice at H-E-B. He helps me. He helps the community. He's a great man. I'm so thankful H-E-B loosened him up, lets him go around and sponsor a few things. H-E-B's got all your food needs. It's the greatest food store we got here in Columbus. Thank goodness for H-E-B. First State Bank. You go over to First State Bank, they'll take care of all your loans, all your deposits, your savings, anything you need. Bunch of great hometown people over there. You got Celia Tobias, John Pollock. Everybody over there is looking out for you. Miss Barbara Barta. It's a great bunch of folks at the First State Bank is also sponsoring News from the Camp House. First State Bank takes care of all my business. Baumgart Agency, Susan Baumgart at the Baumgart Agencies, her and Germania. She told me to plug Germania. Germania is an insurance that she likes everybody to know about. The Baumgart Agencies. Miss Susan and I are classmates, being classmates. She got me out of high school, sat right beside her, put us in alphabetical order where I could copy. and Susan Baumgart over at the Baumgart Agency, taking care of all your insurance needs. Lyco Realty, one of the original sponsors of News from the Camp House. Lyco Realty, the oldest real estate company in the county, and for the last 3 years voted the favorite realtor in the county. Lyco Realty, that's Miss Kimberly Johnson, that's Crockett's granddaughter. More kinfolks and classmates and great people from Colorado County. People from Colorado County helping people from Colorado County. That's great. Oh, thank goodness for all these wonderful people come to me want to be sponsors for News from the Camp House. Good morning and welcome to the second half of this week's News from the Camp House, the listening post to the Texas Sportsman Association. This is Herman Brune. We're here this morning with Ms. Lee Spencer White. She is a descendant of the Alamo. She belongs to an organization of these folks, and she is a person that I reach out to. She's been on the radio before. She's a great source, and knows a bunch of the history, and is very interesting. Okay, you were also instrumental in the past few years with some of the restoration projects around there, both pro and con.
That's correct.
All right, so George P. Bush kind of stepped in it and shot himself in the foot real bad with the way he was trying. Well, let's give our listeners a little background. That, the Daughters of the Texas Republic used to take care of the Alamo. And then it got turned over somehow. The General Land Office took it over, and correct me if I'm wrong, it wasn't that bad of a feeling when Jerry Patterson had it, right?
Well, there was a bad feeling when the state of Texas took the Alamo from the Daughters.
Uh-huh.
But Jerry Patterson was someone and is someone that you can work with.
Right.
He was not an extremist.
Right. All right. And then, okay, so Jerry decided to try to move up in politics, and that didn't work out for him. And then it also didn't work out for the Alamo because all of a sudden George P. Bush was trying to be in charge of restoration projects, and somewhere between the state of Texas and the city of San Antonio, there was a bunch of misgivings. There was things went south.
It went south, and it went south very quickly. Under the leadership of George P. Bush, he is very much of the ilk of, do what I say and no, you don't have any input. The city of San Antonio had decided that they would hire certain experts, and they knew exactly what they wanted to do and the story they wanted to tell at the Alamo site, and they wanted to minimize the Alamo defenders to a tiny portion of the history being told.
Mm-hmm.
Many of us, we realize that history is multi-layered, and yes, you tell everyone's history, but let's face it, people come to the Alamo for the 1836 battle. That's the fact.
Mm-hmm.
Any rate, in trying to diminish the memory of the defenders, one of the things that the city of San Antonio and George P. Bush with the General Land Office wanted to do was remove the Centotaph. Now, Centotaph is a empty tomb, and it's a beautiful, huge monument that sits in the middle of the plaza as a memory of
the defenders.
It's a tombstone to the Alamo defenders, and their names are on it. It's a beautiful piece that was finished in the 1930s. At any rate, they wanted to move it out, and they wanted to move it outside the fortress walls, and wanted to put it in front of the Menger Hotel where they were going to have tables and drinking and parties, and I just said no. Right,
absolutely right. It's in a place of honor. It's in a place where you're going to see it. If you visit Alamo, you're going to see the Centotaph. Okay. All right, so y'all said no, we're not moving the Centotaph. There was a big controversy over that. Y'all had to jump through a lot of hoops, go to a lot of court hearings. You had to bring in the Texas Historical Commission. There was a lot of stuff going on until you finally got them beat. and George P. Bush is gone, and I'm trusting that Miss Buckingham works with y'all better.
She does, and Dawn is a person Dawn Buckingham is now the Texas Land Commissioner, and she is someone that you can actually go to. I had tried to have meetings with George P. Bush, and he wouldn't even have a meeting with me. Dawn is very open door. She's very progressive where she needs to be, and yet she's a traditionalist when it comes to Texas history.
Good. Probably the most, well, not the, it's hard to say what's the most egregious, but whenever they start talking about, and it was part of George P. Bush's era, was when they talked about reimagining history. And we already got kids that are too dumb to know where they came from. It was horribly egregious to me when they were minimizing and trying to turn it into something that it was not, and making the entire thing seem petty. That was just horribly egregious to me. To here you have the true Texas stand against oppression, and tell my listeners a little bit about that. What were we really standing up to at the Alamo?
If you're referring to what the defenders felt, or are you referring to our latest fight with the Centotaph?
What the defenders felt?
Well, the defenders, like, I'll give you, first of all, the example of mine. He had a wife and 4 children over near Bastrop. And so he's fighting for home and hearth. He also has a father and a grandfather who fought in the American Revolution. What you're going to find in most of the defenders is they have fathers and grandfathers who were in the American Revolution and grew up on freedom and helping. So even the volunteers that are coming, and what does Travis write in his letter? He talks about Americans throughout the world come to our aid, and that's what these people are doing. They are against tyranny. And the defenders are standing for 2 things, really. They're talking about freedom. Many of them have land here. They've already invested here. And they see this as a big opportunity. You have to remember there was a depression of sorts in the late 1800s, and so a lot of people came for a second chance in life. Here's a place where I can get cheap land. I can start over with my family here in Texas. So this was a land of opportunity for many of them.
All right, and also there was a Mexican Revolution going on.
Oh, absolutely.
Texas was not the only province that was revolting against the Mexican government.
Absolutely. What was happening is there were several provinces doing that, and I believe it was Zacatecas is where the most horror was happening, where they were killing and raping the civilians. Well, the Texans were horrified and thought that's what they're going to do here. So there were many people that were upset when Santa Anna became a dictator, and he was not upholding the Constitution of 1824.
Okay, there's the answer I was digging for. You had all these Texans, new Texans who fresh off the American Revolution, and they were not going to put up with tyranny. They were not going to put up with a dictator. They weren't going to put up with someone telling them where they had to go to church or disarming them, and that was the oppression they were looking at. And when you look at the horrific way that Santa Anna went after these people, you can realize what they were actually fighting against.
Oh, absolutely. And Santa Anna states very plainly when he's coming into Texas that if he finds you with arms of any type, if you have guns, then they will kill you. That's just it. That's that simple. Yes, he came in to disarm the citizens, and he had a vengeance against Texas, because his ego was hurt when Coss lost the Alamo in December of 1835. So it was sort of personal for him. And it didn't help that he also was, I don't know how to say it the way, a drug addict. He a lot of people at that time took opium, but he he was on a ship. There is a General Green who tells that in his papers and his diary. It's quite interesting. But Santa Anna himself was, a handsome man. He was intelligent, but his morals were in question. He was quite a womanizer, and as a matter of fact, duped a young lady in San Antonio while he was there on the campaign against the Alamo defenders, and he duped her into marrying him, even though he was already married. Mm-hmm. So, at any rate, at the end of the day, Santa Anna, in my opinion, was very much a coward, because once he is captured at San Jacinto, he all of a sudden becomes very gracious, and he's going to try to smooth his way out of the whole thing, and he pretty much does.
Right. Well, they needed him alive for the treaties. All right, we got to close it up, but tell me right now a little bit about the restoration, and what do you like, what do you dislike, what's going on?
Well, obviously, I'm thrilled to death that we won in court and in popular opinion to leave the Centotaph inside the Alamo Fortress in the heart of the Alamo. Mm-hmm. They are currently restoring that. I'm very joyful about that. I'm very pleased with their latest exhibition building. It's done very well, and they've started on the renovations for the new museum, which I'm sure will be world class. They've added some structures that, like the entry into the original fort. I'm waiting to see on some of it, on how it's finished up, but overall, it's much better than I had feared. So right now, the Alamo Trust, that are actually running the Alamo day to day with Kate Rogers, are doing a good job. Mm-hmm. And I mean, they're growing so much with employees that I'm not sure with good or bad. I'm watching that, but at any rate, it will be a world-class site. For some of us old-fashioned people, we kind of liked it a lot the way it was before. Mm-hmm. It needed some improvements, absolutely, and some better interpretations for sure, but sometimes rebuilding a historic site is not always the best way to go. So we'll see how that works out, but I'm very hopeful. I'm very pleased, and the Defender's story is still up front, and I'm very happy about that.
Yes, ma'am. In a recent visit, there's a great museum now on the east side. If you haven't been to the Alamo in the last couple of years, there's on the east side of the Alamo, there's a new museum. It was new to me, and it's got a lot of good stuff. It's got people in there explaining stuff. There's going to be another one on the west side, over where all the arcades used to be. They're revamping the plaza. They're looking at refurbishing the walls a little bit, trying to preserve the walls as any of these buildings decay. They're trying to maintain that, and I got an overall good feeling. It's a place where people can go and spend an entire day understanding and reading and learning Texas history.
That's correct. I think they've done an outstanding job with that. Rather than someone just popping into the church or the shrine and then popping out, if they have any interest at all, I think the museums will educate them.
Yes. Miss Lee, thanks for being with us this morning.
You're very welcome.
Folks, I hope you enjoyed this morning's edition of News from the Camp House. Please go visit Alamo. This weekend's edition was also brought to us by Shaw's Bend Social Club, country club for folks who don't have a country club. Also, Broadway Food Mart, right there at the corner of FM 1890 and 71. When you're going out to the country, stop at the Broadway Food Mart, pick you up, whatever you need to go enjoy a picnic. So, folks, I hope y'all enjoyed it this morning. You go out and have a great weekend. Everybody remember, pretty much in a day is sure a good day to be out in the woods.